We have spent our entire lives buying a picture. Last commute, final handshake, open calendar, open road, no one waiting on you, no one needing anything. Just freedom, pure, earned freedom. And then the morning comes. The coffee is hot, the house is quiet, and instead of feeling like everything you worked for, there is this low hum behind the eyes, a heaviness in the chest with no name and no reason to be there. He is not depressed. He made it. He has nothing to complain about. And that is exactly what makes it so disorienting. Because the men who spent decades dreaming about this moment are the same men who quietly fall apart inside it. Mortality climbs. Cognition drops. Marriages fracture, not from stress, but from too much time and too little purpose. The thing that starts killing men in retirement is not leisure, it is the loss of the mission. That is what we are getting into today. Most of us inherited a retirement model, built for a completely different man in a completely different era. Look, that model was not even designed for us. It was designed for a factory worker in 1965 who spent 30 years doing hard physical labor. His body genuinely needed to stop. We are not that man. And the model we inherited from him is quietly doing damage we do not see until we are already inside it. Here is how it happens. For most high-performing men, the work is not just what we do, it is who we are. The title, the problem to solve, the people counting on us to show up, that is the architecture our identity runs on every single day. The moment the work stops, that entire architecture comes down with it. Depression rates in men spike hard in the first 2 years after full retirement. Not because they are weak or ungrateful, because they handed over their identity along with their parking pass, and nobody warned them it was part of the deal. Think about a regular Tuesday afternoon. No meetings, no calls, nowhere to be. For most of us, that sounds like relief right now. But 6 months into full retirement, that Tuesday afternoon at the grocery store at 2 p.m., surrounded by retirees and no agenda, for a lot of men, that Tuesday becomes the loneliest hour of the week. The phone stops ringing, the problems stop landing on the desk, and the silence turns out to be louder than the grind ever was. You deleted the software, but you kept the hardware. Now it's just a paperweight. Wait, it gets better. The research on cognitive decline after full retirement is not subtle. When the brain stops being challenged, when there is no mission pulling it forward, it begins to slow down, measurably, and faster than most men expect. The body follows the same curve. Without a reason to perform, the machine starts standing down. The men who stay sharpest longest are almost never the ones who stopped. They are the ones who shifted. They changed what they were doing, but they never stopped moving towards something. Honestly, think about a performance engine that never gets run. The seals dry out. The oil turns to sludge. You do not save the machine by leaving it in the garage. You kill it. You are not preserving it. You are accelerating its breakdown. That is not a metaphor. That is your biology operating exactly as designed. Your body doesn't retire, it just stands down, permanently. Most men retire from something. A boss they stopped respecting, a commute that owned their mornings, a schedule that never once asked for their permission. Very few retire to something they built and own intentionally. Think about that. The result is a trade most men do not see coming. They spent 30 years building leverage, relationships, hard-won expertise, and then they set it all down with no second chapter planned. It just ends. No pivot, no evolution, no next play. They traded a golden cage for an empty one. An empty cage is still a cage. Here is the lie most of us have been running on since our first job. You have earned the right to stop. That sounds like freedom. Look, it is a trap. Because stopping was never the reward. Owning was the reward. The goal was never to do nothing. The goal was to stop doing work that owns us and start doing work that we own. There is a real difference between a man who steps back on his terms and a man who simply runs out of runway and calls it a plan. We are not arguing against rest. Rest is maintenance. We are arguing against purposeless rest, the kind with no mission attached to it. That is not recovery. That is erosion. And it compounds quietly until the day a man is standing in the cereal aisle on a Wednesday morning wondering how he got there. The real move is not an exit. It is an evolution. Two men, same conclusion. 2,000 years before the retirement crisis was even a concept. Marcus Aurelius wrote private notes to himself just to get out of bed in the morning. Not motivational quotes for public consumption, raw, unfiltered reminders he never intended anyone to read. One of them survived 2,000 years. I have to get up to do the work of a human, not the work of an emperor, the work of a human. He was not talking about productivity. He was talking about what we are built for at the hardware level. Being useful is not a job requirement. It is a biological requirement. And he understood that the moment a man stops, not his career but his contribution, something in the operating system begins to shut down. Seneca took it further. In On the Shortness of Life, he made an argument that lands harder today than it did when he wrote it. The men who waste their lives most completely, he said, are not the ones who burn out early. They are the ones who spend 30 years working toward the moment they can finally stop, and then arrive at that moment and find it completely empty. He called it the greatest self-deception a man can run on himself. Not a philosopher's suggestion to stay busy, a diagnosis. The men who disengage do not drift, they decline. And both of them saw it coming from 2,000 years out. We are not building a retirement plan. We are building something better. 3 moves. Here is how it goes. Before you exit, I want you to do one thing. Write out the Monday morning of your retired life. Not the vacation version, the real one. Tuesday in February. Weather is gray. Kids are at school. Phone is quiet. Nothing on the calendar. What does 9 a.m. look like? What about 2 in the afternoon? What happens when you have nowhere to be and nobody needs anything from you? If that schedule goes blank before noon, you are not ready to leave yet. And that is okay. That is useful information. Because the men who figure this out before they walk out the door are the ones who land clean. The men who figure it out after, they figure it out the hard way. Your job is giving you more than a paycheck right now. Most men never stop to look at what else it is giving them. Structure, status, mission. Those 3 things, write them down. Because when you leave, and you will leave, those 3 things do not come with you automatically. They stay behind. And if you have not built replacements for all 3 before you walk out, you will feel their absence every single morning until you do. This is where most men get hurt, not financially, here. They exit clean, take a breath, feel the relief, and then 6 months later, something is wrong, and they cannot name it. The account is fine, the body is fine, but something is off, and it will not go away. That something has a name. It is the architecture the job was holding up. You do not blow up the bridge until the new one is already carrying weight. That is the whole protocol. While the engine is still running, ask yourself one question. If money was already solved, what would you do? Not what would you enjoy, what would you build? What problem would you go after? Who would you show up for? That answer is your second act. And the move is to start building it now, in parallel, before you ever leave the first one. Not as a side project, not as something to fill the hours, as a real structure with real stakes and a real reason to get up in the morning. The men who do this do not retire. They shift gears. The pace changes. The arena might change, but the motion never stops. That is the whole game. You are not waiting for the exit. You are already building what comes next. Look at the men who crossed that line and came out sharper on the other side. They did not stop. They shifted. They built something they owned and moved toward it with everything they had. And look at the ones who didn't, who took the boat and the beach chair and the finally. Most of us know both kinds, and we already know which Tuesday morning we want to be living. The goal was never a day where we do nothing. The goal was always a day where we only do what matters. Marcus Aurelius did not want to stop being a human. He wanted to become a better one, right up until the end. That was the whole mission, not the finish line. Never the finish line. So here is where we are. We can keep chasing the stop, the exit, the pile of cash we slowly eat until the clock runs out. Or we can start building the shift. One of those compounds. The other one rusts.